everyone, and welcome to the first session in our 3-week leadership series. During each session, we'll be hearing from 2 North Metro SBDC clients who exemplify the topics for the week, and we'll have a chance to ask questions and learn from them, and hopefully walk away encouraged with new ideas to continue developing our own qualities of leadership. So before I get into the introductions, I'd like to just remind you that this session will be recorded, and we'll send out a follow-up email with access to the recording. And it will also be uploaded to the video library on our website, which is northmetrosbdc.com. So you can always check it out there as well. And feel free to type in your questions at any time in the questions tab on your GoToWebinar panel. And we'll do our best to leave some time at the end after we hear from our guest today to get to those questions. So without further ado, I'm Hannah Curtis. I'm a coordinator with the North Metro SBDC, and I'm joined by Jon Jaggers, lead consultant with the North Metro SBDC. And Jon has been working with both of our guests today for several years to help guide their businesses and answer questions and just be an invaluable resource. So we're happy to have Jon's expertise throughout this series. We're also joined by Mary Stevenson with Deltech Furnaces and Gib and Lisa Coalwell with Wordsmith Wood Shop. So Mary will kick us off talking about the importance of consistent communication, and Gib and Lisa will then be sharing on the importance of keeping a positive attitude. So Mary, we'll start with you today. Can you tell us a bit about your business?
Yes, we're small, very small, 8 employees, 3 of whom are family members who work day to day in the business. We've been around since 1968. We manufacture high temperature electric furnace systems for materials science researchers and industrial ceramics manufacturers around the world. We were the 2019 Small Business Administration Region 8 Exporter of the Year. We're ISO 9001:2015 certified, and we are a UL 508A panel shop.
Wow, thank you. That's really helpful to have some context. And we're just so excited to hear from you on these questions today. So we'll dive right in. So first question is, what has the impact been of the weekly schedule meeting that you hold?
Okay, I need to give you a little bit of background for that first. Jon had been suggesting that we hold a meeting with a production meeting on a weekly basis, and we kept resisting. We said, well, we don't have time for meetings. We got work to get out the door. And then we had a fairly newly promoted production supervisor, and after a few weeks, he came up and told us that he was just completely frustrated and discouraged. He said, I don't know what the priorities are. I don't have sometimes the parts I need. I don't have the drawings I need to further the projects that are on the floor. He said, I'm making busy work for my team, even though all this work is sitting here because we're dead in the water on so many projects. So that was a wake-up call for us, and we started holding the meetings primarily with engineering and production to talk about things like staffing issues, tool and equipment issues, the plans and expectations for the week. What were the priorities and what could we accomplish? And we saw an almost instant change in how things were going in the production department, and how much happier people were and how much more confident they were in their ability to get their jobs done. So it was just, it's been great. The initial meeting probably was 2 hours long. Now sometimes it's as little as 15 minutes, and it is so well worth it. I'm glad Jon kept prodding us, and we finally got our wake-up call.
Mary, you know I'm persistent, so hey. We've been working together for 6 years, so.
Right.
You tell me that every once in a while you have to turn around real quick because you think I'm standing behind your desk. So.
Yes, I hear you speaking to me.
That's okay. So anyway, as a segue to that, another type of meeting that you're having for communication is your interdepartment meetings. Can you talk about how those work?
Yes, another meeting that's held when we get a new furnace system project. Again, production and engineering meet and go over the parameters of the project, and then eventually work in review of drawings and the design itself before things get into fabrication, so that if there are any issues or if there's a better way of doing something, or if production sees, this is a great idea on paper, but trying to execute this is going to be a real problem. Is there some other way we can do this? All those things get discussed and figured out. And it's been great because it encourages people to share ideas, and believe me, our production team has been a huge contributor to great ideas for improvements in ways of doing things. And the fact that problems get resolved before work hits the production floor saves the frustration and the time and the money involved in having to have work delays or reworks. So that's been another really, it's very much worth the time that it takes.
And it's improved your metrics from a standpoint of on-time delivery, quality complaints, and really the other thing that I think it impacts is the morale of everybody in the organization.
Oh, 100%, John. I'm glad you mentioned those things, because I think everyone feels like they are, which they are, a key member of the Deltech team, and that their suggestions, their problems are listened to and acted upon. And yes, John can tell you, we've had quarters where our on-time deliveries were 0. That is much improved since we instituted these meetings. And yes, we're getting almost no customer complaints, and for a while we were getting a lot of them. So it's really made a huge difference.
Great, that's so encouraging to hear. Mary, I know you've also implemented some new pieces of technology. Can you talk a little bit about how that has improved communications?
Yes, our production supervisor uses the QuickBooks Enterprise accounting system. It's a very powerful system. It does all kinds of things. Any of you who happen to use that know. He orders our stock parts and also a lot of times the parts for the project, specific parts. And so he's able to keep close track on what's coming in, when it's coming in, has it been ordered, so we don't have any of those issues like, oh wow, that component we forgot about, well, it's got a 6-week lead time. What are we going to do now? Also, on the receiving end of things, as part of our quality program, when materials and parts come in the door, they get, first of all, matched for the right part, inspected for any obvious defects or issues, checked in electronically so that we immediately have a record of having those parts, and then stored appropriately, as opposed to just tossed in the box up on the shelf until you come along later and go, oh, this is not the right part, and we didn't discover it until we got ready to use it. That's bad news.
Inventory is a big discussion item between Mary and myself. The last 6 years, right, Mary?
Exactly. I'm still in trouble over inventory.
You're getting it. So one question I know is not a positive, but I need to ask it. How has COVID impacted your operation and your employees?
Well, the first thing that happened to us was we got good news. We were declared an essential business by a couple of our customers, so we were able to keep the doors open. And of course, that was a great relief to everyone, because well, like any business, you can just imagine if you aren't able to stay open and keep making product. But on the downside, sort of within the next month or so, I'd say by May, we had high dollar value projects on the production floor ready to go that we couldn't ship and bill because our customers weren't in a position to be, they weren't open. They couldn't accept the deliveries. And so you're just trying to keep the doors open and the lights on and people paid while you wait for those customers to be able to get back on track. The Paycheck Protection Loan absolutely saved us. We might have managed to stay afloat, but it would have been much more difficult without that. And then we managed to keep everybody healthy until fall. We've had 2 COVID scares. We've had 2 people test positive. And right now, of our 3 production people, 2 of them are out. One of them waiting for test results. One of them is in quarantine because he's got COVID. So, and we have a lot of customers who are expecting us to ship product prior to year end. In some cases, the money goes away. It's government money, for example. So this is a huge deal. As my son, who is our engineering manager, says, he's on the verge of a coronary half the time over this. So it's been tough, but I know we're not alone out there, and we're at least not a restaurant.
Sure. Yeah, and I know a lot of people in leadership positions have, really struggled with the decisions of, how to make these choices, and then also how to communicate all these changing factors that are ever changing to their employees. How have you been able to communicate, everything that's happening in your business to your employees and ease their stresses over what's been going on?
It's difficult, isn't it? Because you want them to know that these are hard times, but you also don't want to so demoralize them that they can't function, or that they're seriously worried about their security, their job security. So that's been tough to balance. We did let them know immediately about the essential business, which I think we all breathed a collective sigh of relief. I did tell them about the Paycheck Protection Loan helping us out. And then we've been careful to, we're Kaiser members, that's our medical plan. We've been careful to forward all the information we had, plus information from the CDC, on to employees to make sure that they knew what their options were, what they needed to worry about, how they could keep themselves safe, and of course communicated what our expectations were for hygiene and personal protection like mask wearing. Yes, they're hot and uncomfortable, but it beats the alternative. And of course, COVID still managed to get us, so, but you do the best you can.
Well, Mary, in I guess a brighter time, pre-COVID, we did some lean training with your entire group, and I thought that was a pretty successful effort. Can you talk a little bit about what that lean did, and how? And you mentioned this earlier, which I'm glad you did. How employees now feel empowered to provide ideas for improvement.
Yes, Jon came in, and the first thing he did was go down to production and just kind of survey things. Are there work patterns that we don't have a very big shop, but do you have work patterns you're interfering with one another? Are you taking too many steps to get tools out? Could you have a better organized shop than what you have? Well, we thought we had a pretty well organized production area, but after Jon's visit, our production supervisor took this to heart, and he went through and cleaned stuff out like has never been done. And I think that had a really good result. Plus, I do think that because Jon explained that lean is about improvement and continuous improvement, and that as, for example, a production worker, you know best what goes on down there and what's required for you to do your job, and you can see some possibilities for improvement that I sure can't see, you know, sitting upstairs or at home. So it's been, yeah, the lean has been really, really good for us. And I am hoping that in 2021, maybe we can kind of do that again, kind of reinforce that, get Jon to come in and visit with us again, because can always use an update.
Yeah.
Well, Mary, you've touched on this a little bit, but have you noticed a change in the employees after taking all these steps to implement more clear communication? Have you noticed a difference?
Yes, for sure. And we have one, our production lead, as a matter of fact, he will comment openly on this. He said he feels like a key member of the team. He appreciates being listened to. He likes working for the company. And I don't think there's anybody who does work for us right now, unless I'm missing something, who isn't pretty happy with their jobs. And we did see, you know, especially following those initial production and design review meetings, just so much more, a loss of a lot of stress that you could just see and feel. You know, you just kind of know when people are stressed and unhappy, and that it's not about something at home, it's about work.
Well, that's so great to hear that, you know, it's been a positive experience and great things have come from it. So thank you so much for your insights and your encouragement. And I'm sure we'll have some more questions from viewers here at the end. But for now, Gib and Lisa, I'd like to turn it over to you, and hoping you can tell us just a little bit about your business.
Okay, so our business is a woodworking business. We've been involved for about 20 years doing things. 7 or 8 years ago, we purchased our first laser, and now that's where the vast majority of our work comes from. Probably 75% of our work is laser engraving work. We have some big clients, and we have lots of small clients, and we're always trying to increase those connections. We are a very small business. It's just the two of us. I'm basically production, and Lisa, we call her the chief everything else officer. She's the IT expert. She's the money expert. She takes care of a ton of stuff. We also have a couple part-time employees that are paid piece rate, and so therefore we don't have commitments. If we don't have orders coming in, we don't have labor costs on top of things. So we're in good shape there. But we really are about trying to be positive. If I don't have the answer, she's going to have the answer, because there isn't anybody else to ask. So.
Great. Well, thank you. That's great to hear some of that background. And as we heard from Mary, I'm sure COVID has impacted you and your business as well, particularly maybe in sales and operational issues. Can you talk a little bit about how a positive attitude has helped you overcome those issues?
Yes. Well, and like one of the things that Mary said, you know, about her son, you know, being on the verge of a coronary, that a lot of people have gone through so much. You know, being smaller, it's been easier, but like you said, Mary, the PPP and the EIDL loans helped a lot, you know, make the bridge. And thank you, Jon, for pushing us to do those. But we kind of saw the positivity as, you know, there were three ways that a business could face COVID. And one is, you know, just be numb and ignore it, which is, I think, what we did for the first month. You know, we were just like, what? Our biggest customer, wholesale customer, is shutting down? You know, how's that going to happen? Or two, be negative and rail against it and say, no, this is, throw a temper tantrum. And we did that too, and that didn't make any results. So we said, well, if you're going to be positive and rational and say, and I think it was during one of the SBDC seminars that we heard somebody say, when things get back to normal, and somebody else said, no, there's not going to be back to normal. It's a new normal. And when we realized, okay, things are changing, then we can change with them and be positive and be rational and make plans. That really helped us. It doesn't help anybody who's in a hospital bed with COVID. We understand that that's beyond, being positive, but as far as a business owner saying, we've got possibilities here, we got to look on the bright side. So that's what we tried to do with Jon's help.
Yeah, I think you had to, and I remember going through this with you, you had to look at really, since some of your biggest customers were shut down, look at it, all your options from both from a marketing and an operational standpoint. And it wasn't going to be what it was in 2019 from a sales standpoint, but it was going to be enough to certainly keep you busy and to explore, other products that we had talked about in the past. So, that again was driven by your positive attitude to try those new things. One of Gib's main drivers is creativity, and he and Lisa come up with some really great ideas on how to deal with wood, and so they have expanded their product line just because of COVID. So the positive attitude, you're dealing with you're a couple employees, and I know that they've only been working very, very part-time, but probably more important are your customers and even your vendors. So how has your a positive attitude is very influential to those people that you deal with. So how has that worked with particularly with the customers and the vendors? So
the idea of working in a positive environment all the time isn't new to us. From early on, when we started having commercial accounts, retail accounts, and repeat customers. Originally, when we first got in business, we sold one jewelry box, and that customer probably never came back. I mean, they may have loved it, but their need was filled and they were gone. But then when we began doing retail work, where there are people that come back month after month, Lisa pretty much implemented from day one. We are going to answer every email every day. We are not going to leave people hanging. Sorry, my business strategy might have been more, I'll get it to it tomorrow, but Lisa doesn't do that. So customers they feel like they're always number one, and so they're very pleased. That's the positive comes from just starting with as soon as you make a connection with somebody, as soon as somebody drops an email in, that they get a response, they get an answer, and that really builds confidence that starts a relationship, and that's how this year we started a couple of new projects. We got in an online catalog, and that's a lot of that stuff. Being successful doing it is just one, you got to try, and then two, once you make that connection, you got to make it a relationship, and Lisa does that.
Well, and Jon really encouraged us to make sure, like Mary said, keep the communication open, and Jon really said, you've got to pay attention to your customers and let them trust you. You've got to earn their trust.
Right.
Great.
Absolutely.
You touched on this a little bit, but I'm wondering if you have any more you want to share on your level of integrity with employees and customers, and how that influences your business. You demonstrate a high level of integrity in your business, which we would hope all businesses do. And what do you think that impact has been on your employees and your customers?
So I think, that is something, again, that Jon said, make sure that you're accountable to your customers and don't overpromise. I like to say to people, sure, we can get your, 300 custom bookmarks done by tomorrow and in the mail for you. And each one of them has a different name on the back. We can do that. And I want to promise that. And, Jon and Gib both said, really, can we do that? So be honest. And, if we're not overpromising and using our integrity to be honest and say, I really want to do this project. We really want to help you, but here's the parameters. And just like Mary, if you can't get parts or you can't get it shipped, being honest is the biggest thing. So honesty leads to integrity. And then, it's kind of a self-fulfilling thing. Once you are just being honest with people and, you do it all the time and you don't overpromise like I would do. And it's really bad because I'm the one doing the communications and he's the one doing the work. And it's like, oh, did I forget to tell you that I, promised this? So Jon has helped us figure out how to be positive and practical at the same time. So we appreciate that, Jon.
I think you learned a lot on your own, but I'm your encourager, I guess. But you brought up a good point from a standpoint of communication. That's kind of back to that topic. But I encourage you to have morning huddles. I know there's just the two of you, and then potentially a couple employees. But how has that affected your goal accomplishment, your communication, and really your stress level with the huddles?
So I like to be creative. I like to stop and think about planning and ordering and sequences. It's just not what I like to do. But Jon has reminded us multiple times, and we're doing it more now than we've ever done it. And to be honest, after we have a session, everybody's plate is cleaned. Everybody gets a chance to talk about all the issues they know of. There's no more hidden secrets, or nobody's holding on to. I don't want to tell you we're about out of wood yet. That kind of stuff. So it's not my natural tendency to have these morning meetings and these regular huddles, whatever you want to call them, but they do have incredible value, especially more than anything, just to relieve your stress, because now you know that there's no secrets. It's out there, the plans are out there, and it's easier for the next 24, 48, 72 hours to work on that goal, on that list, because you've got all the rest of the hidden stuff taken care of. So it's definitely worth it, even though it's not my natural thing.
And like Mary said, taking the time to do that, we kind of said the same thing, Mary, to Jon. It's like, oh, who has time for this? We got to get up, get going, do things. And it's actually helped us set the tone for the day, and we're on the same page. You would think husband and wife working in a very small area, right now, a really small area, but that we would communicate more. Well, we're doing our own thing. So, and many days before Jon, Gib was going one direction, I was going the other way, and that doesn't help. And like Mary said, that time is well worth it. So we encourage morning meetings or afternoon meetings, whenever, very much. And we do ours outside a lot, which works nicely.
Yes, gotta get some fresh air.
I like the fact that you do your morning walk and have the meeting at the same time. That's accomplishing several things, including good exercise around the lake. So,
well, I know because of COVID, you've had to pivot some of your marketing techniques and your product offerings. How has a positive attitude driven you forward with those challenges?
So I think that the one thing, and I hate to say a good thing about COVID, but I've heard many people say it was time that the world just stopped and everybody got a chance to think And rather than being numb or negative, when you were being positive, when you said, okay, wait, we've got to do this, we've got to be positive about it, you can see the opportunity. And Jon had been saying, what about this? What about this? What about this? And we're like, we don't have time, we don't have time, we don't have time. And all of a sudden we had time and no excuses. And so we got to look forward, you know, rather than just write down what we're doing, we got to look forward. And online, there was a really good seminar that Jon did with one of his other, the clients that does, I don't know if I can mention it, but does the beef jerky. It was really good. And they were talking about how he pivoted. And it's like, wait a minute, that's some great ideas. And so we looked online, and we've actually got 2 more streams, revenue streams now, because of being positive and saying, okay, you know, we're not going to panic, not the chicken with the head cut off. We're just going to figure out what our new normal is going to look like, because it's not going to go back. So it's been really actually fun. We have a new customer that Gib mentioned, an online catalog that's amazing. And I keep thinking, why didn't we do this a year ago? You know, well, that's because we didn't have Jon. So it's been great. The positivity helped.
Yeah, really, your whole marketing program has changed because not just because of COVID, but just because you've done some major improvements on your website, and really that gets back to communication. But you know, we live within. I'm not to digress here, but we live within the e-commerce world. So the things that you've done marketing wise, and Mary, the same thing for you, has really helped your business. So I'm not going to belabor this next one, the next question I got, but I think it's important to always, one of the benefits of SBDC is that we try to provide some consistent follow-up. And so I know for a fact in the last year and a half, we've had a monthly call or a meeting every month. And it's funny, as a manager of many different companies, you know, accountability is really important. And you know, I'm a consultant, but still at the same time, I think I try to make you feel accountable, and we have certain objectives that we work towards. So how has those monthly meetings reinforced your strategies?
Right.
So you hit the nail on the head with the word accountable. We didn't have anybody to be accountable to other than each other. And when you're husband and wife, that, you know, it's kind of like, oh, let it slide. You know, it's okay, honey. But Jon doesn't accept that. You know, he won't say, we can't say it's okay, Jon. And he's like, no, it's not. But he's kept us accountable. And we could even say to each other, what would Jon think about this? We've actually said that to each other. What do you think Jon's going to say? You know, what would Jon do? But he's another viewpoint, but not just another viewpoint. He's a really important viewpoint that that we needed very much. And we keep talking about a tribe, and we feel like SBDC with Jon in the lead is our tribe. One person we did want to mention just real quick is Galen Emmanuel, is a person that we went to see, and he talks about having the shift, got to say that carefully, shift yes tribe. They say yes and instead of yes but, you know, but he's really helped us be positive. And when we first listened to this Galen Emmanuel, we were like, well, we don't have a tribe. But then we realized, golly, the SBDC with Jon's leadership is our tribe. They're the ones that tell us, yes, yes, and you can do this. Yes, and you can do that. No, there's no but in there. So and having that monthly meeting is essential. I think it's essential. At one time, something happened and we couldn't meet with Jon like on the regular day. And I was like sad, you know, it was just, we need Jon, we need Jon. We wait, we have a list of things to talk to Jon. So we appreciate our tribe.
And as far as accountability for me, I didn't want John to come because I didn't want John to see my shop. And I mean, I know about, like Mary said, the layout of the shop and the flow and the number of steps. And I knew what John was going to say. I didn't need John to tell me that it was a mess, but he did. He told me it was a mess, but he still encouraged me to get it, to make it better and make improvements. He said, yes, it's a mess and you can do this to improve it. So it did get improved, it get better. So it's worth it, even though it's a little painful. It's worth it.
That worked so well, you build a new shop, right?
There you go. There you go. One way, get rid of the mess just to sell it, move away.
That we went to a smaller shop. I didn't think he could do it, but John, he can. You did it.
Right.
Thank you.
We're good.
That's so great to hear. And we know that, you've shown how you've stayed positive throughout all of this and through all of those changes and through starting with the SBDC and all of that. But positivity doesn't always come easy and it doesn't always come naturally. So do you have any advice or tactics that you've used to stay in a positive mindset even when it doesn't feel like it's coming?
Okay, so we mentioned Galen Emmanuel. That was somebody that, so he does every Tuesday, he puts out a video, and that's one positive, specific thing you can do, that being positive, because he's just, well, just smile and be happy. That doesn't work, so Galen Emmanuel has helped us a lot. We have a shop dog who's been sitting here, but he makes things funny and happy. So if you have something in your business that's unusual or something that reminds people that work isn't 100% drudgery, the dog that does that. We always say, change your viewpoint, go somewhere else. That's why we have our morning meetings around this beautiful lake. But if Mary was talking about being at the shop, if there's a coffee shop or something, employees leave. I used to be an elementary school teacher and I couldn't go somewhere else, but when the recess bell rang and we could go outside, it was such a difference, just changing that viewpoint. You're just so negative about something, so upset, but then you look out at the mountains or you see a bird fly by or you take a cup of coffee that you love or chocolate, and it makes a difference. It really does. And then for Gib,
I always have a good dad joke available.
Yeah, that's unique.
They're usually not what you want to hear, but they're always available.
So look up dad jokes. And when they're just those really bad jokes that everybody has to laugh at. And so right in the middle of a tense moment, Gib comes up with a dad joke, and it's just like.
Well, she said she's chilly, and I said, "Well, I'm not beef too."
That kind of thing. So.
I like this.
Yeah. So.
That's great. It's so nice to hear how. Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, it's so nice
pointers
that we. Yeah. I was just gonna say, it's so nice to hear how simple those actions can be. Implementing some humor or getting some fresh air. These are all things we can all do, and we all should be doing, even for our own health. And they really can make a big difference. So thank you for sharing that. Great. Well, those are all of our interview questions. So I think we'll open it up to the questions from the viewers now. So thank you to those who have submitted already, and feel free to type in some more there in your questions tab. But our first question is for the panel. So it's really for the Coalwells, for Jon, and for Mary. What advice do you have for a business who has yet to start? They need to take that first step, implementing communication strategies and positive mindsets into their business, is part one. And part two, what is your advice to a business who is maybe in a bad place with this? They've tried some communication strategies and they haven't gone well. They've tried to be really positive about things and it hasn't gone well. How do you pull yourself out of that?
Well, it's a tough question. I think, okay, so I think the answer is right in front of us from a standpoint of what we learned today. But when you're starting a business, you certainly have to have a passion for what you do. Gib and Lisa are a great example of that, and Mary's a great example of that. They have high passion for their work and their organization, but it's not an easy task by any means. And I think that you need to either go through some training with SBDC. The leading edge class is excellent from a standpoint of building a base of how to start your business. And then specifically, depending on what it is that you're going to start, have a consultant on a regular basis that can give you some guidance and encouragement, because it's a tough task, particularly right now, to go through. I know I have 3 or 4 clients that I work with that are just starting out, and I really have to spend more time and more encouragement with them than I do with those that have a couple years under their belt and they're a little more confident. But seek advice. SBDC is a great source. We have very, very talented consultants that will cover really any aspect of what you want to try to do. So I don't know, that's my answer. Anna, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think that just having some community that can help you through those times, like whether it's the SBDC, whether it's another business that you have been working with, whoever can be a support for you, I think can be really important to, we all just need some encouragement sometimes of you've tried this and it didn't work, but that doesn't mean you've failed. You've learned from that, and now you can try something that is better and improved and hopefully will work. So I think having a community and a support system is really important.
I think that also you need to have a very realistic approach to the times that we're in, and will in fact your idea, your product, your service work during these very trying times? And I'm not discouraging you because I love entrepreneurs, I love small businesses, but at the same time, you got to be realistic on what the next six months to a year is going to bring us. Things are not going to change that much. They're going to change, hopefully, with the vaccine, but it's still going to be a very challenging times. So I don't know. Gib and Lisa, what do you think? What's your opinion?
Yeah, so if I could add, as far as communication is concerned, I think being successful, there's a couple of things that we haven't touched on. In our situation, deciding each job, who the best person for that job is to do that job. So so when you're setting up your business and you're communicating, you're working things out, if a person doesn't like numbers, they shouldn't be doing cookbooks. And if a person doesn't like talking on the phone, they shouldn't be answering the phone. Some of those simple things. But then also when you're in a work environment and you have 2 or 3 production people working together, for me, the best way has always been to believe that everybody has value, everybody on the team has some skills. Let's see what those are, and let's find out what those are. Use those to the best that we can. And then anytime I'm working and you are more successful, that's a good thing. So that if there's a conflict between 2 people, if there's a communication problem, and there's a conflict between 2 people, don't gossip and talk behind their back. Talk directly to one another, solve the problems, and communicate directly, get it taken care of, and then you'll have a clear slate to start new. It's just me.
That's great advice, Gib.
Yes. This next question, Gib, you kind of just touched on it, but the question is, when you have clear communication, how do you deal with the pushback on that? I know, Gib and Lisa, you have some employees. Mary, you may have more employees. So when you make a decision, you communicate it, and you get pushback thinking that that's not the right decision, or they don't want to follow through with that, how do you handle that?
Hey, we're going to let you answer that.
Okay, that I think that's like a whole other webinar. I think dealing with employee problems, and particularly things like pushback. I think probably one of the most important things you can do is to make sure that you really listen to what the person who's objecting has to say, and not just kind of screen that out while you're busy formulating what your response is going to be to the fact that they've objected. I think that's a really good place to start. And sometimes you just aren't going to be able, I think, to resolve things, and maybe then the company and this person part company if that's their choice. But I do think that you ought to give it your best shot to listen, communicate, try different ways of explaining why you're doing what you're doing. And that's important too, I think. Make sure that people understand that, yes, we're going to make this big change, but here's our reasons for it. We're not just, it's good to not have, because they may have no understanding of why you would be doing this, and they just find it really upsetting. People aren't always terribly good with change, even if it's for the better ultimately.
I think part of the answer is really the environment or the culture that you build. If it's one of two-way communication, yeah, granted, they may have some pushback, but they may also have some ideas that maybe a little more realistic to what you're suggesting. And so again, back to Mary's point, you do need to listen, but you also need to have a environment of trust that, okay, we're gonna try this, but we're also going to take your input at the same time. So,
Agreed.
Great. Well, those were our questions for now. So anyone listening, you are welcome to still type some in. But also Gib and Lisa and Jon and Mary, do you have any other thoughts on these topics? I know they're very broad, high-level topics. Yes, Mary.
I do. I wanted to come back to Lisa's point about answering the emails every day. Like, you don't go home until you get that done. I think that's really, really important. And I think especially in COVID times, because people need to know that you're there and that you're up and running and that you're able to respond and able to deal with their problems or their requests for quote, whatever it happens to be. And it's always been a pet peeve of mine when I had vendors who would take days to respond, and like, did you get my message? I don't care if it takes you a little time to respond, but just let me know you got my message and you're working on it. And so I think that's really, it's important anyway, and it's really critical right now, I think. So good job, Lisa.
Thank you.
if I can expand on that just a little bit, really, we touched on it some, but probably not enough. Communication with your customers during these times is critical from a standpoint of letting them know exactly how things are progressing. But also, I think that your good customers are going to understand if you do have, for example, Mary's current situation. I know she's communicating to her customers that there's going to be delay, but she can't control COVID, but she can communicate that this is the current situation, and they really appreciate that, and they're going to, in the long run, they'll understand a whole lot better if you just try to work around it.
I think Gib touched on that earlier, that letting your customers know what's going on is really really important. In the past, we weren't always good about that. And then by the time the customer did find out that there were going to be delays in shipment, they were mad. And understandably, I mean, people can cope much better when they know that there's going to be a much longer lead time than what you originally promised, and that you're doing the best you can.
Now, Hannah, my last comment really has to do with these fine folks that we're talking to. It's always been such a pleasure on my part to be able to work with them and watch them grow and prosper. And, you know, even though we're in very, very difficult times right now, the fact that they're good communicators and they have that positive can-do attitude, I just think is terrific. It rubs off. They gave me a lot of credit, but let me tell you, you guys rub off on me just as much as I rub off on you, okay?
Yes, I would second that. There's a reason that, you know, you were picked for these topics because you do exemplify these in your businesses. And I know it's such a source of encouragement and inspiration for other businesses who are trying to trudge through and, you know, want to do the best they can do to see examples of people doing that in their own businesses is very encouraging. So thank you so much for being willing to share what's worked for you and what challenges are. And it's been really great to hear those insights.
And you may want to mention that a week from today, the same time, we have another webinar which has to do, again, with other leadership principles. Specifically, we're going to have Paul Beer from Dale's Meats. He's going to talk about being disciplined. He's probably the most disciplined guy I've ever met. And then we're going to have Matt Irvin from Maplewell Engineering talking about being technically sound. So please join us next week, same time, same station. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, it'll be great. That'll be week 2 of our series, and then we'll follow up one week after that with our final part. So we hope that throughout this whole series that everyone is having an open mind on ways they can improve their own leadership. Maybe kickstart some good New Year's resolutions for 2021 to implement some of these strategies into your businesses. So thank you all so much for joining us today and tuning in. We hope you'll join us again next week. And if you are interested in making an appointment with Jon or any of our other SBD consultants, you can do so on our website, which again is northmetrosbdc.com. Those are happening remotely and they're free of charge. So really easy to get that set up. We'd encourage you to take advantage of that. And again, another big thank you to Mary and Gib and Lisa for joining us. And we wish you all a great rest of your day.